Oh, Season 4. You were once my favorite, but you've dipped a bit as time has gone by. I still appreciate the changes it tried to implement in letting the Winx grow up after graduating from Althea, but it could have been handled a little better. A lot better. And today, we're going to explore the problems of Season 4, and maybe throw out some ideas as to what could have been more interesting. Partially because I want to articulate my feelings, and also because I may or may not be toying with the idea of a Season 4 rewrite down the road. How would that fit in with my Season 5 and 6 rewrites? No clue, I don't know. We'll figure that out if we ever get there. Speaking of which, I do want to give y'all a brief update on my Season 6 rewrite, which, yes, is in the works. If you've seen my video about learning Blender, you'll know I've been learning a lot about 3D modeling and animation in the last few months. As such, I decided it would be fun to put what I've learned into practice, making character models and sets to create visuals for my Winx Season 6 rewrite. You can see some of my creations over on my Instagram if you would like, and I also just got back to working on the first draft of this rewrite, and I'm about 75%-ish done as of writing the script. Math is hard. I'm taking my sweet time, as a lot of you were so understanding and patient and encouraging me not to rush this project, both for the quality of the rewrite and for my own mental health and well-being. It's so reassuring to see that, and in general, I've really appreciated this kindness and excitement of all my viewers who are Winx fans. It's by far a more welcoming atmosphere than some of the other fandoms I've been part of in the past. With that all said, if you want to support me further while I work on my projects, you can pledge your support for myself and the channel over on Patreon, and also give a one-time donation via the Super Thanks feature I've just enabled for my videos. Think of that as a little tip jar if you would prefer to not do any recurring payments. And you can also check out my urban fantasy novel, Disinheritance from the Ashes, over on Amazon and wherever else books are sold, or if you can't afford it, because printing costs kill me as much as the shipping costs kill you, damn you Ingram Spark, you can request a copy at your local library. Or indie bookstore, if you would like. Now with all that out of the way, let the madness begin. This isn't quite as bad as it is in the later seasons, but it still very much detracts from Season 4, especially the first few episodes. In the earlier seasons, it made sense they stayed together given, they were still students, and they all shared a dorm. But now as adults, the Winx would presumably be going off in their own directions rather than clinging to each other on autopilot. That would have been really interesting to see, especially as the setup of them being invited back to Althea by Faragonda. Maybe Bloom could be struggling to adapt to life on a newly revived Domino, or Musa is considering starting up a music career while carrying out her duties as a guardian fairy. The self-doubt that comes from entering adulthood could easily push them back to the safe haven that is Althea, which would then be taken away with the encounter with the fairy hunters. But instead, the Winx are acting like nothing has changed, all returning to Althea to show off their powers to the adoring freshman fairies. I've said it before, and I will say it again, the beginning of the fourth season feels like a very stale fanfiction that doesn't properly characterize the girls. It actually makes a lot of sense to have the Winx go to Earth, as Earth being, well, a non-magical dumpster fire that's gotten exponentially worse since 2009, could help put the Winx into new, more mature conflicts that force them to acknowledge their faults and grow as people, outside of the usual saving the world stuff. You could even use it to show some of them trying to escape their problems and responsibilities in the magical universe with the excuse of a new mission, only to find they can't get away from those problems so easily. But instead, the only things they seem to miss once they go to Gardenia are their relationships. Oh boy, we will get to those, because there's a lot of melodrama to unpack. Bloom has lost all of her fiery, impulsive personality. Granted, a lot of that came from her characterization in the 4Kids dub, which I've really come to appreciate, especially after the Winx Forever podcast, which, by the way, y'all should go listen to that on Spotify. Good shit. But even in the original, she wasn't this picture-perfect role model that everyone put on a pedestal. But from Season 4 onwards, she's treated as the most important member of the group, even when her storyline of the destruction and revival of Domino is complete. Like, girl, it ain't about you no more. Jesus, take a seat. Take several seats. The writers treat her as though she's flawless. She's the paragon that the others look to, especially Roxy, her protege. And quite frankly, it's annoying. Part of a good teacher-student dynamic is also acknowledging that teachers can learn from their students. Roxy calling out some of Bloom's arrogance and bad choices would be most welcome, and do well to remind Bloom that she still has a lot of growing up to do. She's not finished learning, because no one is ever finished learning. That's how learning and life work. Stella, meanwhile, is so childish. Granted, it's not as bad as it is in later seasons, but that's not a high bar. The bar is in hell. One of the main issues with season 4 is that, for the most part, all the faults of all the girls and their storylines revolve solely or mostly around their relationships. We'll get into that more specifically in the next section, but not only is there more to adult relationships, but there's more to adulthood in general than romantic relationships. Stella's problem is that with her relationship drama, she acts completely out of character, losing her sense of security. And while insecurities are interesting to see, this feels completely out of character and contrived. I'd much rather see Stella unpacking how her parents' divorce affects how she handles relationships. Just in general, I would like to see more reflection from the Winx this season. Musa, likewise, has lost a lot of her tomboyishness, both in design and personality. That itself isn't a problem, but it's not something that's ever acknowledged or addressed. It isn't Musa actively wanting to change how she expresses herself, and the more I describe this, the more I wish we could do some gender exploration with these characters. Especially Musa. Yes, I know it's an animated children's show from the 2000s and early 2010s, but let me have my queer dreams, okay? Okay. Personally, Musa is my non-binary kin and a bisexual icon, and I will never back down from this. Also, there's pretty much a rule, I suppose, where, most artists are probably some shade of queer. The trauma has to go somewhere. She does at least get a story outside of romance with her pursuit of music with Jason Queen's record label. But even then, the drama with Riven winds up tainting a lot of it. I wish they did more with the storyline, maybe with Musa struggling with the songwriting process as she tries to produce singles or an album, and maybe even being confronted with the corrupt, soul-destroying, capitalist nightmare that is the music industry. Oh god, is Jason Queen Scott Borchetta? Oh no. On top of that, the formation of the Winx band winds up putting Musa's love for music on the back burner because it becomes yet another example of the girls becoming a hive mind who must do everything together. What are we, a cult? Their very identities are now enmeshed, and they are not allowed to have individual dreams. And as some extra salt in the wound, they have Bloom be the lead singer, with Musa on backup vocals. Most likely for branding and merchandising purposes. Capitalism ruins art. No. Bloom, go to jail. Aisha fawning over Naboo and being caught up in their relationship doesn't really bother me. Honestly, it's nice to see a relationship where the couple, actually communicates and enjoys each other's presence without any pointless drama. What I will say is that I wish they both had other storylines outside of that. I appreciate Naboo being best buds with Riven and giving him good advice on making things up to Musa when Riven listens, but something else would have been nice. Actually, given they talked about living on Earth together, I would like to see how that relates to Aisha's relationship to her homeworld of Andros. Does she even still want one day to be queen? She loves her world and would do anything for it. Season 3 proved that, but does that necessarily mean she wants to rule it? Especially because Season 2 showed she don't like a lot of that royal shit. I don't fucking blame her. Stella mostly just ignores it. Flora and Tecna have absolutely nothing going on. And in a way, I'm kind of thankful for that, because it means they don't have any forced drama going on. But even so, they deserve something. Maybe Flora learning about environmental issues on Earth. Lord knows we need someone to fix that. Oh god. No way that girl would let climate change go unchecked. I'm just imagining Flora breaking into ExxonMobil headquarters going, "Let me see your executives, I have words." And maybe Tecna becomes a video game designer, given how much she clearly enjoys them. Roxy is a great addition to the cast, and I do appreciate her expressing her hatred of magic, as opposed to Bloom wanting to become a fairy with all her heart, given Roxy's feelings come from a place of wanting her life to stay the same. I would have loved if they did more with the Winx, as that could have allowed her to form individual friendships with each Winx, and maybe teach them something about themselves. And just in general, I wish Season 4 had more character-driven stories like Season 2, focusing on the individual girls' dreams. Again, there's more to adulthood than relationships. This season is meant to show the Winx growing up, yet somehow their relationships feel more juvenile and messy than they ever were in the first 3 seasons. Still not as bad as the later seasons. But let's also raise our standards, shall we? The bar is in hell. Honestly, I do wish they allowed some of the couples to dissolve or talk about whether a relationship would be best for them moving forward. Not all around messy breakups, but sometimes people drift apart or relationships stop serving the people in them with where they are in life. The transition into adulthood can test all relationships, especially romantic ones, and that would have been nice to see in season 4, especially with all of the guys uprooting their lives in the magical universe to follow the Winx to Earth. If anything, this makes it feel like the guys don't have lives of their own to begin with. They're just their girlfriend's shadows following them wherever they go. And also, wow, they really did not think through how the specialists work. Did they even graduate? They try to pretend Sky leaving his duties as Herakleon's king or crown prince or whatever the hell is a big deal, but outside of episode 9, it really ain't. I mean, I wish it was, Jesus. Bloom and Sky have a dumb jealousy problem towards the beginning, with Sky worrying about Bloom flirting with her ex-boyfriend Andy, when Sky doesn't even know that's the ex-boyfriend or know who Andy is, which then sparks a conflict between the Winx and Specialists as units. Again, all of their identities are enmeshed for the next couple of episodes. And yes, it is a slog to get through. Even the fact the Winx are angry about the guys following them to Earth is frustrating, with a "you don't believe in us" angle that feels so contrived and hollow. If anything, I would like to see Bloom and Sky's responsibilities to their kingdoms be the thing getting in the way of their relationship. Not only is Sky busy with learning how to run Herakleon, but Bloom would be busy with helping Domino and adjusting to its own resurrection. Not to mention the question of what happens when they get married, if the writers can remember whether they're supposed to be engaged at this point, and how potentially ruling 2 entire planets would work on a day-to-day basis. Stella's beef with Brandon is so stupid. Why did I say it like that? Brandon saves Mitzi from one of the monster pets, she clearly develops a crush on him, and then Stella winds up accusing Brandon of cheating? Which, what? It was one-sided, and this is the couple that made a game out of who could flirt with the most people? In what world would this ever happen, let alone turn into a potentially relationship-destroying fight? Musa and Riven are a total goddamn mess, which again winds up ruining a lot of Musa's storyline about her music career. In theory, I don't mind the story acknowledging the toxicity and unhealthy aspects in their relationship, but the way that they handled it was not good. Both of them have trash communication, unable to properly get their feelings across to each other, and Riven specifically feels threatened that if Musa pursues her dreams, she won't have time for him, which is a very, very, very big red flag. That's crimson. Oh my god, run. You know that breakup scene in season 6? That should have happened here, with Musa and Riven realizing their relationship no longer works, and maybe it never did. That they're both better off going their own ways. Even Musa's crush on Jason doesn't bother me, as to me, it feels like a rebound crush people often develop when they leave a relationship, falling for the idea of a person so that they don't have to be alone, rather than actually liking the person themselves. Aisha and Naboo, again, love them, just give them stuff outside of their relationship to do, please. And I'm not gonna comment on Naboo's death again, but Rainbow, you did my boy dirty. And I will never forgive y'all for that. Tekna and Timmy have nothing going on for their relationship, and neither do Flora and Helia. But in this case, they were at least spared from the bullshit, so thank God. Normally, I'm not a fan of the idea of power levels, but in this case, they royally fucked up the magic system. I don't mind there being additional higher level transformations beyond Enchantix. Oh god, that's giving me flashbacks to when Nickelodeon marketed Season 5 as Beyond Believix, because we will never escape Believix. As seeing new forms can keep things interesting with new storylines, and also new outfits. I like new outfits. The problem arises with this idea that each new form is more powerful than the last, because then you're gonna run into problems very quickly. One of which being the nerfing of the previous form. Instead, new forms are better when they're specialized for specific environments or missions. Instead of Believix being straight up stronger than Enchantix, it should just be that Believix specifically is needed to restore Earth's magic. That could even explain why it starts out relatively weak and hard to control when first achieved, because there isn't enough belief in magic from the people of Earth to make it truly powerful just yet. Not to mention, having Farragonda mention it in the very first episode feels so... Why? Again, it feels so fanficky and unnecessary. We haven't even encountered the fairy hunters, so why are we hearing about an Earth-specific form already? And it's definitely not specific to the magic universe, because, like, why would we need a form about believing in magic when we live in a universe made and powered by magic? Like, it's not even a question of believing in magic, it's like, it's just there. That's like asking if you believe in electricity. And in the attempt to introduce Believix, Enchantix got nerfed. I'd argue that Enchantix never got a chance to truly shine. So many of its spells were just amplified Magic Winx spells, and it wasn't around nearly as long as Magic Winx. And then comes Season 4, having the Winx unable to put up a fight against the Black Circle with their Enchantix powers. Yes, it makes sense if the wizards are immune to fairy magic, but at this point, the Winx should know how to fight. They should be able to indirectly battle the wizards until earning Believix. Conceptually, and design-wise, Believix has grown on me, but I still feel the therapeutic spells come across less like the Winx understanding the humans of Earth and empathizing with them, and more like they're subtly controlling people's minds to get them to do what they want. Believix spells have cool names, but almost all of them are just generic energy beams and shields. Seriously, this idea that any spells from previous forms must always be scrapped was a mistake. The extra sets of wings are also so annoying. They take up way too much time to pad out episodes, and even functionally, they're unnecessary. Speedix is pointless, as Winx Decoded and Lisa Fevrel have both pointed out. By the way, go watch their stuff, they're both great. The Enchantix wings were strong enough to handle the fiercest of winds, and even keep up with airships. Zoomix's teleportation is unnecessary because Stella has her scepter. At least she should, and she can use that to teleport the girls. And even if she can't, Tecna made a portal device last season for when Stella couldn't go with the Winx. And Tracix? For the longest time, I liked the idea of these wings, but again, it's unnecessary because its function is already served by Flora. Remember how she asked the trees where Bloom went back in Season 1, or what happened to Farragonda in Season 3? Yeah, just have her do that. Hell, she asks the trees about Batson the asshole when they go out to Roxy's old family farm, so what gives? Why do we even have Tracix? And as Winx Decoded mentions, Stella's ability... Oh god, I can't speak today. Stella's ability to recreate the past through her light magic would have been a great addition to Season 4. More individual powers for the girls instead of making them each all powerful. Basically, the lesson is, if your characters have any weaknesses or anything, please keep them. It makes for more interesting stories, and when you get rid of them, you're just gonna run into so many problems. Honestly, I'm still mixed on how I feel about the Gifts of Destiny. I tend to actually like things when they have variants. I'm just annoyed Flora doesn't get to shine with Sophix, because, hello, she is the Fairy of Nature. Why is Bloom the one to get the rivalry with Diana, Fairy of Nature? Oh, I'm sorry, Major Fairy of Nature. I was about to make a PhD joke, but I don't know how Major Fairies work. Do they have PhDs? Or is it more of a military thing? I don't know how the military works. I just know they get all the money. Again, more of the weird focus on Bloom when it's not necessary. I would have loved Flora taking on Diana, especially if her story revolved around environmentalism on Earth. Like, there's a way to do environmental themes in media without it being a Tritanus or a Season 7, Jesus. And as for Roxy, what the hell form does she even have? Because she's from Earth, it adds an element of confusion as to how their forms could potentially work compared to fairies of the magical universe. For merchandising and branding purposes, they likely wanted Roxy to aesthetically fit in with the Winx's Believix forms, hence why her wings are gigantic and so detailed, especially compared to Magic Winx forms. Yet Bloom says Roxy isn't a Believix fairy, hence why she can't use the special wings or the Gifts of Destiny, or she just seems less powerful than the others. So, what the hell is she? Hell, what is any Earth fairy? Do they have Enchantix or Believix or something else? Some clarity would have been very appreciated. I used to consider the Wizards of the Black Circle my favorite villains, but no more. Don't get me wrong, I do love the idea behind them, especially since they're the first villains of the franchise not to be somehow tied to the ancestral witches or the destruction of Domino. It really signals that we're done with that era. But, they don't really have much going on for them beyond that. First of all, how did they not realize Bloom wasn't an Earth Fairy? It's pretty common knowledge at this point she's the long-lost princess of Domino and fairy of the Dragon Flame. You know, the force that created the magical universe. Not Earth. And if they really didn't know, how do they not sense her earlier? When she first came to Earth as a little babu, bambino, baby, cute names for children, I don't know. Using her magic to put out the fire in her mom's flower shop, or whenever she and the Winx used magic on Earth in the first 3 seasons, how did the wizards not sense that and come running? Instead, they only seek out Bloom when she looks at them in a portrait in the Hall of Enchantments. Okay, alright then, sure, whatever. It really feels like the Black Circle have just been lazily sitting on their asses for centuries, and have only just now reignited their fairy hunting mission for some reason. That would have actually been interesting to see and show not only their arrogance, but also their confidence in how thoroughly they've secured their victory in making Earth, well, trash. The state of the US is really proven that they did a number on us. And there are also timeline issues of when exactly the wizards first showed up and started their fairy hunting, and when Earth became trash, and even how old Morgana is, given she was free long enough to have Roxy with Klaus, and then the wizards didn't even notice that she had a daughter and go, oh, she could have magic, or we sensed the magic inside her. Oh god, oh Jesus Christ. In terms of powers, Dumon is cool. I really love his shape-shifting with all his dangerous forms and his ability to deceive the enemy. I would have loved a fight between him and Whizgiz in the first episode. Kalshara could never. But his fellow wizards... The idea of Ogron's powers is cool, but I wish they had him actually mimic the powers of his enemies, allowing him to wield Bloom's Dragon Flame or Aisha's Morphix and throw it back at them. Instead, it comes off as him just absorbing strength, exactly like Darkar and Valtor. Gantlow's seismic waves and super strength work, but they feel incredibly basic. And Anagin's super speed is just laughable. But their powers aren't the worst part of them, it's their characterization. For the most part, they're all some deviation of the generic evil bad guy personality we've seen a million times in most pieces of media, with nothing really unique to make them stand out. The closest we have is Anagin briefly flirting with Flora, which is probably why we all cling to it, aside from how entertaining it is. And their motivations are likewise non-existent. We don't know how they all met, how they became fairy hunters, or even how old they are. How did they create the Black Circle, or was it perhaps given to them by another entity? Do they actually want to control the world, as Ogron sometimes says, or do they want something else, with Earth falling into chaos as a side effect that they dismiss? Oh god, are they billionaires? I really enjoyed them feigning remorse in the second half of the season when the Fairies of Vengeance are released, only for them to attempt a last stand to eliminate all the fairies in one fell swoop. But why? Why are they so desperate and intent on eradicating magic? Do they just want the power for themselves, or do they hate magic? Do they maybe have some philosophy of why they do what they do? You know, like, is it a Black Moon Clan situation from Sailor Moon? It would be something. Winx Season 4 had a lot of great ideas, but not so great execution. I do still love this season and have a lot of respect for what it tried to do, but a lot of its charm has worn off on me over the years. Well, I mean, at least it still holds the title of the last good Winx season. So that's something, I guess. Anyhow, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content like this from me, then be sure to subscribe and ring that bell for notifications because YouTube hates creators. And also, if you're willing and able, you can pledge your support over on Patreon, spare a one-time donation via Super Thanks, and or check out my book, Diseneribus from the Ashes, through the links below. I'm Unicorn of War, and Muse Summer Living's relationship is a shit show.